Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much, Professor Martinelli and Dr. Cerchione, for this kind invitation. Being here is really an honor and a privilege for me. And my title is Maintenance in Acute Leukemia, Trials or Reality. And I start with this old but seminal work from the MRC group on the role of karyotype in acute myeloid leukemia, where we can see that both favorable and intermediate risk leukemia are characterized by comparable and a very high complete remission rate. But the great problem is that a large proportion of them subsequently relapse due to the persistence of a minimal residual disease composed of leukemic stem cells. With intermediate risk leukemia that relapse twice as much the favorable ones. And only adverse risk leukemia are characterized by a greater chemoresistance from the beginning. So the challenge, the great challenge is to maintain the remission, ultimately to prolong overall survival. Here are depicted three hypothetical models of leukemogenesis. In the first, at the top, a class 1 mutation that induces proliferation combines very early at the level of the hematopoietic stem cells, giving rise to a final leukemia characterized with a higher number of leukemic cells endowed with stem cell properties, in other words, leukemic stem cells. In the second model, the class 2 mutation that that impair differentiation precede the class 1 mutation, so induces the expansion of partially differentiated progenitors, committed progenitors, and the late class 1 mutation gives rise to a leukemia with a lower number of leukemic stem cells. In the third model, both mutations occur late. So the first may be representative of an adverse risk leukemia, the second of a low-risk leukemia, the third, for instance, of acute myelocytic leukemia, and intermediate leukemia probably lie in the middle. So the best way to eradicate the residual disease, the residual leukemic stem cells, for an adverse risk leukemia is to perform an allogeneic stem cell transplant, exploiting the alloreactivity of allogeneic T cells. But this is possible only for eligible patients. For a low-risk leukemia and intermediate risk leukemia, our decision relies roughly on the MRD status after the first consolidation, with MRD positive that proceed to a transplant, and the MRD negative patient that proceed to consolidation with high-dose RC. But this is possible only for fit eligible patients. So it follows that also semantically, when we refer, where we say maintenance therapy, what we really mean is a therapy that involves patients that are unfit for a transplant, and in some cases also for consolidative, intensive consolidation. It is by definition a chronic therapy, so it must preserve the quality of life. And most importantly, that improvement in overall survival remains the gold standard of a maintenance therapy. Any other parameters are not enough. In particular, is salvage therapy are available. So looking at the past, several attempts have been made in the past to prolong the remission. The first in the 80s with chemotherapy, using the same drugs previously used during induction and consolidation, but at lower doses. But trial after trial, we can see that this is the Swiss one, the Ovon, the German one, all fail to prolong overall survival, all obtain an improvement in relapse-free survival, but not in terms of overall survival. So chemotherapy didn't meet any of these criteria. So moving to the second chapter, maintenance with immunotherapies, interleukin-2. Interleukin-2 is a cytokine that has been given to induce autologous T cells to stimulate autologous T cells against the residual leukemic cells. But also in this case, trial after trial, this is with interleukin-2, this is with interleukin-2 plus histamine, this is with interferon, all fail to prolong overall survival. They prolong only the progression and the relapse-free survival. So it is better tolerated in some cases as compared to chemotherapy, but it did not prolong overall survival. So moving to targeted therapy. We are currently able to detect several molecular abnormalities that might be targeted by small molecules. And these small molecules represent an ideal maintenance therapy because it is oral available and it is for sure well tolerated. So we know that many, in particular for FLT3 positive patients, many trial has been published, but in these trials, what we really lack is the maintenance therapy has not randomly assessed, and this is the real problem. And we can see for the RATIFY that this post-hoc analysis that evaluated all patients that did not proceed to a transplant, the clear benefit of the maintenance with midostatin has not been possible to demonstrate. With the SORMA study, again, the maintenance has not randomly evaluated. So we can see that over time, the overall survival, the two curves tend to diverge, but we cannot say the real role what is the real role of the maintenance therapy because it has not randomly assessed. And the same with the quantum study. We can see that at your right, that patient that did not receive a transplant, that the survival advantage is maintained even in patients who have not performed a transplant. Anyway, it's still not clear the role of maintenance because it is not randomly assessed. This just to remind that several metabolic features of leukemic stem cells may be targeted probably by inhibitors of apoptosis such as venetoclax. And many ongoing clinical trials are currently be explored the role of several targeted therapies such as FLT3 inhibitors, IDH inhibitors, venetoclax, and also the combination of hypomethylating agent with targeted therapy. So for targeted therapy, we cannot draw any definitive conclusion because the lack of prospective clinical trial. But I think that anyway, this approach promises and is very attractive, and we are all waiting for the result of the ongoing clinical trial. So the last chapter, the maintenance with hypomethylating agent. We all know that the QUASAR study has been recently published on New England Journal of Medicine. It is a very well-designed clinical study. It is a phase 3 randomized clinical study, double-blinded, placebo-controlled. So nothing to say, this is the best way to evaluate a new drug for a new indication. And for the first time, with such a randomization, we have a therapy, the oral azacitidine, that have clearly demonstrated an improvement in overall survival, almost doubling the median overall survival of the placebo arm. So, but I think that we have to look deeper, to analyze deeper this paper. In fact, around 25% of patients did not receive any consolidation. And most of patients that receive consolidation receive only one consolidation due to unexpected toxicity during induction. This is what say Paul Montesinos in a recent interview. So we can see by this forest plot analysis that patients who receive all the planned first-line therapy with the 3 cycle of consolidation did not benefit from oral azacitidine. So, and this is in line with what previously demonstrated by the MRC group in the AMER-16 trial, where patients were randomized to receive oral subcutaneous azacitidine versus placebo as maintenance therapy. And the authors concluded that the 50% of patients who achieved complete remission with course 1 and were MRD positive, overall survival was improved by consolidation or maintenance, but not incrementally by both. So we can say that for the first time with oral azacitidine meet any of these criteria. And my first summary is that we must keep in mind that improvement in overall survival remains the gold standard of maintenance therapy, that oral azacitidine is the only therapy that has been shown to improvement in both relapse survival but also in overall survival to date, that hypomethylating agent preserve the quality of life. However, that patients would preferentially benefit from oral azacitidine are those treated with an incomplete first-line therapy and are MRD positive at inclusion. So we must identify this patient to not overtreat all the other patients that have complete the first-line therapy and have reached a very, very good complete remission. So to answer the initial question, maintenance in acute myeloid leukemia, trials or reality, I think that is not yet a reality. But with 273 ongoing clinical trials, I think that we are very close to be a reality. I just want to spend the last 2 minutes with another area that, to my opinion, we are even closer to the goal. To my opinion, even more interesting, that is maintenance therapy after allogeneic stem cell transplant. Over time, moving from 80s to present, we can see that the final outcome of transplant has not so significantly improved. This is because over time we have indeed reduced the treatment-related mortality, but we have not reduced the relapse. Relapse that still remain the main cause of failure of transplant. So we must focus our efforts to try to reduce the relapse, also, to my opinion, in the post-transplant setting, trying to optimize the graft versus leukemia effect or using drugs targeting leukemic stem cells. We must keep in mind that the graft versus leukemia effect needs several months to work. So keeping the residual leukemic stem cell at a low level may give the graft versus leukemia an advantage over the residual disease. There are several biological studies with hypomethylating agent that seem to demonstrate that these drugs may shift the graft, may modulate the activity, the immunological activity of the allogeneic T cells, moving from a graft versus source disease toward a graft versus leukemia effect, mainly by increasing the expression of tumor antigens. And the same may be caused by the use of sorafenib, by FLT3 inhibitors. But for sorafenib in particular, we have much solid data. The SORMAIN study. The SORMAIN study is a study that randomized, double-blind phase 2 trial, that randomized sorafenib maintenance versus placebo after transplant, and we can see a significant improvement in progression-free survival, both for MRD-negative patient pre-transplant and for MRD-positive patient pre-transplant. So these curves are very impressive, and I think it will translate in a benefit in terms of overall survival. And we all can't wait the result. We are looking forward to see the result from the MORPHO study. So this is my last slide, where my opinion that I offer for your discussion and the opinion of my group is that the transplant should not be considered as the final step of a therapy, but it should be considered as a step integrated in a more complex program, where from the beginning it should be discussed by and planned by the leukemia team, by the transplant team, and also by the laboratory team, aiming at getting closer and closer to a precision medicine. Thank you very much.